Hey, friend. Welcome back to the Anchored with Purpose podcast. I'm here today to talk to you about something a little bit different than the usual. We're not talking about goal setting or productivity or faith habits. We're talking about joy, the kind of joy that sneaks up on you when you least expect it, the kind of joy that God brings right into your lap, sometimes literally with fur and wrinkles and little curly tails. This week, our family grew by two. We officially adopted Duke and Duchess, a pair of 11-month-old pug puppies from Green Mountain Pug Rescue. And oh my goodness, they have completely stolen our hearts. I'll share a little bit more about them. If you've been around for a while, you know that pugs have been a part of our family for years. We had two sweet ones, Olive and Frank the Tank. And it's so interesting because we didn't go looking for either one of these two. So I'll share, when I first saw a pug, I remember I was in elementary school. I went to my friend's house and she opened the front door and this adorable little wrinkly dog with a curly tail was there. And I asked her, I was like, oh my gosh, who is this cute little thing? And it was her pug. And so I was obsessed ever since. And the way we got Olive was just so interesting. I was working for Target at the time. I was at a coworker's house for a team picnic. And as I was sitting there, Olive, this tiny little black pug puppy, just came and sat in my lap the entire time. And I remember my coworker looking at me saying, oh my gosh, she loves you. You should just take her home. And I said, well, I would take her home in a heartbeat, but I'm not going to take your dog. And she said, no, I'm serious. We've got two kids under the age of 3 and another pug. And Olive is just in the crate all day while I'm at work. And then she has to sleep in the crate at night. And my heart broke. I could not let this cute little thing sleep in a crate. And Jeff and I had just gotten, we just had gotten approved that day for our first place together. And I remember calling him after sending him a picture and saying, hey, can we please have this pug? And he said, no. And I said, please, can we have this pug? Look how cute she is. And he said, no. We just got this new place and we had agreed on getting a bulldog because a bulldog was right in between what he wanted and what I wanted. That was going to be our compromise dog. He wanted a golden retriever. I wanted a pug. And so we thought a bulldog, wrinkly, still kind of cute, right in the middle. And then finally I called him again and he said, you know what? You're going to do what you want anyway. So go ahead. Well, I brought her home and we fell in love, and she was our baby for years until I got pregnant with Andrew. And while I was pregnant with Andrew, Jeff took Olive to the vet and came home and he said, honey, the vet just told me this sad story about this woman whose pugs accidentally mated. They had puppies. One of the puppies died. It's a sad situation. And they're looking for owners. They're looking for someone to adopt this puppy, and it's a little black male pug puppy. And I said, absolutely not. I am pregnant and hormonal. And if you show me a picture of this puppy, I'm going to say yes. Well, spoiler alert, he showed me the picture, and that's how we got Frank the Tank. So I shared, we never had gone looking for either one of these pugs, but they joined our lives and we loved them. We had Olive until she passed in 2020, just before COVID. And we had Frank until the day before Easter this past year. And he was our big personality. The snoring, the cuddles, he was my shadow. And when he passed, it felt like a piece of our home and our hearts went quiet. And there's something that's so powerful about that silence after loss. You just don't expect it to be so. And so at first, we kind of were waiting on exploring finding another pug. And it was interesting because we kept going back and forth, and Jeff and Andrew both kept saying, no, we only want a black pug. We only want a black pug puppy. That was what they wanted. Anna and I were both like, any pug will do. We'll take any pug. That would be great. And finally, at one point, poor Sean was like, any dog, seriously, can we just get a dog? And the months just kept going by. I had reached out to a pug breeder of someone that we knew, and she had pugs that could be like she had one that could produce black pugs. And she let us know that unfortunately that pregnancy didn't take. And then when she shared the price of the pugs, honestly, like I was a little blindsided. I was not expecting it. We had adopted our first two, so we had not ever bought a pug. We didn't know. And I was like, oh gosh, I can't spend that money. That's entirely too much. We've got big goals, and to spend that kind of money on a pug, and we knew we wanted two. I'm like, there was no way that was happening. So we began to look at adopting, and that is when I found Green Mountain Pug Rescue. So I started just watching their website for just to see, what they had, if there were any pugs available. My sister in Pennsylvania was also watching various rescue sites for different dogs. And every time, one would pop up, Jeff just kept reminding me, it's not a pug. It is it's not what we're looking for. And then I kept saying, our other pugs found us. I think we just need to wait. God is going to give us our pugs. Let's stop trying so hard for this. And so when I was on the Green Mountain Rescue site, I had seen this adorable little black pug puppy. He was a male. He had parvo. So he was like a little fighter and a survivor. And we applied to adopt him. Well, it turns out the adoption process can take a long time, especially with an out-of-state rescue. So we had to wait for all of our reference checks, for the home visit. By then, that pug puppy had already been adopted. And I just kept checking the site. I just kept looking. And finally, a couple of weeks ago, it showed these two black pug puppies. They were 11 months old. They were a bonded pair. They weren't siblings, but they were born a day apart to two different litters and two different locations, but had been raised together since they were really little. As soon as I saw them on Green Mountain Pug Rescue social media, I immediately said, I want them. I emailed the director and I was like, please, can we apply for these two? We really want them. And on our original application, we had put that we really were interested in black pugs specifically, that we really wanted to, we had, they ask you things like, do you have a yard that's fenced in? Will the dogs ever be alone? How long will they be alone? What kind of plans do you have for travel? And so thankfully, all of that worked in our favor. And when we got approved for these two, my gosh, just the excitement in our house. There was excitement and this big spark of hope that I honestly, I wasn't even expecting. I had kind of forgotten what that felt like, just to see how excited the boys were and how excited Jeff was about this. It was wild. And so during the week while we were waiting for them, it was funny. The boys kept, every day they were like, oh my gosh, is Friday ever going to get here? Is this week ever going to end? And finally, when Friday came, Jeff and I drove 2.5 hours through the Green Mountains in Vermont to go pick up these little two. And it was funny because I really thought they were going to just run and jump on us and be so excited. I was concerned because I got there and they didn't even run to us. They barked at us. It took a long time for them to even, come near us. Finally, after a few minutes, it felt like forever, but after a few minutes, we were able to get down on the ground with them and they were sniffing us and giving puppy kisses, which was the best. And then I got to sit in the back seat and ride that 2.5 hour ride home with them. And by the end, they were snuggled up right next to me, which was just so sweet. And I got the opportunity to really bond with them, which was great. And I've got to tell you, bringing them home, it was just so sweet, letting them learn the house. And then when the boys got home, that was the cutest. So Andrew had asked, will you pick us up from school? And I had said, well, do you want me to walk the dogs to school and you can walk home with them? And he said, no, I want those dogs to jump up on me and greet me when I get home from school. So Jeff picked the boys up from school, and when they got home, it was the cutest thing. They jumped up. They were napping on my legs because they were so tired from their adventure in the car. They ran and jumped on Andrew, and he was just in his glory. Then we all got on the floor in the kitchen. They were climbing all over the kids, and it was just so cute watching them all bond. After that, we all snuggled up on the couch, and there was this joy that we just hadn't had in our house for 6 months. It had been 6 months since we lost Frank. It reminded me that God truly cares about those small details of our lives, even those furry little four-legged ones. And I'll share with you how we got their names. Originally, these two were named Dewey and Letta. And right after we had lost Frank, I just kept thinking, I knew we wanted to get two pug puppies, and how cute would it be? We used to call Olive our princess. We never even tried to. She just became princess. She ended up answering to princess. We would just have to yell, princess. And little Miss Olive would come running. So I had said, since we already had a princess, what if we have a Duke and a Duchess? And I thought, Duke is kind of a funny name for a small dog. When you think of Duke, I normally think of a big dog, like a big Great Dane. And so we just thought that Duke and Duchess would be perfect for them. 3 out of 4 of us agreed that Duke and Duchess would be the perfect names. And I'm not going to say who the fourth one was, but it wasn't Jeff. He agreed. He likes Duke and Duchess. But now everyone is on board, and they're just so sweet. They're so snuggly. I had to rearrange my office. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it looks a little bit different. I had to move my chaise lounge away from my office windows and bring it here behind my desk so that they could sit with me while I work, because they just want to be right beside me most of the time, which is super cute. Here's what I'm learning through having Duke and Duchess and having this puppy energy back in the house. Sometimes God restores our joy in unexpected ways. Sometimes he brings healing, not through grand miracles, but through tiny, everyday blessings. Through the wag of a tail, the warmth of a snuggle, or the sound of laughter, puppy kisses. And maybe that's something you need to hear today. If you've been walking through loss, if something's missing, or if life has felt a lot quieter than usual, hold on to that hope. God is not done writing joy into your story. So friend, whether your source of joy today is from a puppy, a sunrise, or a simple moment of laughter, let yourself feel it. Receive it as a gift from the one who delights in delighting you. Thanks for tuning in today, for celebrating this little piece of our family story with me. I'll be sharing some photos of Duke and Duchess over Instagram, so make sure you're following along. And until next time, stay anchored, stay joyful, and remember, God's goodness shows up in all kinds of ways, even in snorty, wiggly pug packages.